There we are. Okay, so my typical intro is a little off, but we're gonna hit into this. So welcome everybody. It's just me today. The two studs are in Orlando at the CFI FCICA convention. I'll be joining up with those dudes tomorrow, and as well as the princess. You know what? I'm not sure if Crystal is going to be there, to be honest with you, because Miss Crystal Sims is also competing at the regional qualifier for the installer challenge coming up at Tice in January. So installer of the year. So you guys have me, and the boys will join when they get on from whatever they're doing. Hey, fellas. So as stated, they're down in Orlando and at the show. And what's up, guys? They're still connecting. So I'm going to start off with giving you a quick overview of what we're going to be discussing today. Obviously, the guys are down at the FCICA and CFI show, but today is around managing installation teams. Now, this particular topic is more so the installer who then hires some other installers and kind of has a couple crews working with him, and he starts managing those crews and taking on more work, and some of the tips, tricks, and strategies, and particularly some shortfall or pitfalls that we've experienced over the years in working with subs who've went through that progression. So can you guys hear me there down in fancy Florida? They may hear me, but we can't hear them. So voice check, not working. Okay, so I'm going to lead in, and these guys will join in whenever they get the audio set up. So, it's a pretty common progression when an installer goes out on his own. There they are.
It's not a cord, it's a port.
We can hear you guys.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Can you hear us?
Yep. Daniel's just
Awesome.
trying to get the camera set up. So
what's up, fellas? How was the trip?
Scramble mode is on. The trip is good. It was I've been down here for a few days already. Daniel and them got down here yesterday. I mean, it is what it is. You used to be on a plane. It was just a standard flight, man.
Sweet.
I don't need that.
Well, today, as I previously stated, we're going to be going over managing installation teams, and really what that boils down to is an installer going through the progression of maybe he was an hourly or a helper with someone or an apprentice, and then became an installer himself or herself, and then decided to grow their team and start taking on more work. It's a pretty standard progression with a good installer, is that they will take on the additional manpower or team up with some other guys and start doing more work. So that being said, the couple of the pitfalls that I've experienced in this progression is, overestimating what one of your crews can do and taking on more work than you have the capability of actually completing. We've seen a lot of guys get into trouble with that. Also, in that same vein is maybe overestimating their ability or that they're going to treat the job the way you would. So in both accords, accountability is a kind of a key component. So if you're a installer and you're running a few subs or a few guys working with you as a sub or a few crews, the key is accountability, like checking in with them, having conversations about your quality, as well as making sure your crews are trained. The biggest pitfall that I've seen is we award a job to somebody and they have one of their crews do it, and the quality expectation is not there, and it doesn't match what the lead installer who we've worked with for many years may have been, capable of delivering and what we're used to receiving from that particular crew. So all I can say is make sure that you place your crews or your even if they're on your W-2 and you're paying them by the hour or however your arrangement is, just making sure you understand their capabilities and that you put them on jobs where they're going to be successful. Are you guys audioed up and
I think we're good
with
now.
us?
Can you hear us?
Yep. Well, you guys rock. Stepping
Awesome.
away from the activities down there. Well, you guys, to drill down on this, you guys use subs and have you guys experienced some of that where you're used to working with a certain guy and he's hired another crew and he's running 2 or 3 crews and running himself, and then you get a job that's not quite up to par from a quality or performance standpoint?
I don't think we personally have not run into that, right? Because if we hire someone direct, we know that we're hiring them and they don't have someone else that's coming in. So I can't personally say that we've experienced that. However, we have been that sub before that needed extra outside help, and have reached out to, ex-employee who's on their own or someone who we've worked alongside to help us out, and the work hasn't been up to par. So that has happened, and I totally get it. I understand. And we are always open and honest about that situation when it happens. Like, hey, we're a little bit overwhelmed right now. In order for us to make this happen, I got to bring somebody else on. And we're fortunate enough, we work with people who are very understanding, and we understand that we have full responsibility to remedy anything that individual who is helping us out has done wrong or may have caused. So we've been pretty fortunate. It's only been a couple little things, and they've always been minor, but that's about it. And honestly, a lot of the downfall to some of those experiences has been communication, right? The other person just doesn't communicate the same way we do, or the same way we've had the people we have the luxury of working with become accustomed to.
Yeah. Communication seems to be that foundational piece that always comes up in almost all of these podcasts, and it's because it's such an important part of getting work done, especially when you're talking about working with you got a new guy going to a job and all the moving factors on a project. Communication becomes like the most important thing. We've experienced that. We've had guys that worked with us for many years, and then as they got more and more work, more and more capabilities, got to know some other people in the industry that bring on new crews or new team members, and leave a guy or a gal even on the job site, and not the same level of communication, expectation, and quality, and all those things. Just they're not the same. Now, we've also had it work out plenty of times, and the times that it's worked out, it's been where they communicate with the main guy or the main person in a high quality manner, and then that person communicates with us the way we're used to, and then it works. And when I would also say on a quality front, the guys that the crews that perform very well under this condition are ones that value getting their team trained or sending them to certification courses or what have you, One of our larger subs has a couple of crews that are just phenomenal, and he's invested in them by sending them to, protect all training. He invested in one and got them sent them to CTI certification course. And so on the tile side. So when you're making sure your team is as well trained and capable as yourself, that's when success can happen. But remember that communication is always key.
Yeah, 100%. And to add to that too, because you had mentioned something early on about setting up for success, right? Not in those words, but sometimes you got to put your guys out there in awkward positions for them and for you to find out if they could, if the outcome is what you need, if they're going to perform under pressure, if they're going to be able to delegate tasks and run a crew, right? Someone who's got the best hand skills might not be the best lead. Someone who's a really good lead might not have all the knowledge, but they can move the parts around where they need to be. And yep, Mr. Roland Thompson's here, by the way. He just brought it in instead of him commenting here. Look, let's add him to the couch. This is not,
let's hear this old man. Just sit down here.
What's up, Roland?
Come there, buddy.
Good to see you, sir.
My comment was, so many times a fantastic coach, whether it was football, baseball, whatever, was not always the best player in school or a player in college, but they had that knowledge and they had that talent to know how to put the pieces together to make a good team. It's the same thing in our business. It's not always your guy that has the best hand skills, that has that best knowledge of how to put a project together, especially on a big commercial project. He has to be able to work with he's got to work with the GM. He's got to work with the designers. He's got to work with the architect. So your guy with the good hand skills is good at performing that, but not always good at lining that up for that performance to go. So
yeah, that's
I don't know if that's all you were talking about, but that's
the bulk of what we're talking about. And that's a good point is, we talk about making sure that your team is trained, but you got to make sure that you have the capability and that you're equipped to be able to manage and run other people, because managing people is what you're doing when you start bringing on new team members and sending them out to projects. You got to be able to be efficient.
You guys.
Awesome. You got to be an efficient manager and not always have to be the absolute best installer yourself, but you definitely have to be a good manager of other people.
And that's what is understanding people, finding common ground, being able to relate as far as lingo and if you're a people person, you're a people person, right? It doesn't matter what crowd you're in. And that's a lot of the battle right there. And like I say all the time, we just said it again today, communication. If you know how to communicate with many different levels of people, you're going to find success in leadership. It's just hard to stay away from a leadership role or position if your communication skills are better than your hand skills or your execution in anything that you do.
Well, here's sort of give an example that I can come from me. All right, I'm here. I couldn't be here without my guy back at home. All right, I do the trainings I was at a point in my business that either I was going to have to cut back the trainings I do, cut back, TV stuff I do, and give more time there because I was, I needed to give it to it. So instead, I went out and knowing people I know, I got the best salesperson in the area. He's always been known. Everybody's sought after him. He knows how, he's been selling, and his dad had a store. He knows how to order. He knows how to schedule the guys. He knows how to close deals, right? So I went out and got him, put him there. So when I'm gone, I can feel confident that my business is back there running. So could he install a single lick? No, he can't. All right. Is he a financial wizard? No, he's not. All right. But is he a wizard when it comes to selling and closing the deal in hand, calling the manufacturers, following, tracking orders? He knows how to do that. And he's very, very good at it. All right. Well, that's what I needed him for. All right. So when you're an installer and you're looking at, or you're running crews or you're looking at jobs, you need to look at the person that can enhance what you can't do, or what you can do, but you have other things to do. So you look at that hole that's missing in your company, your business, and you then feed it with somebody that knows how to do that. And in that case, in my case, is my salesman, all right? But in the case of an installer, like I said, it could be somebody that might not have the best, skills at everything, but has the skills that you need.
Yeah, it's a good point. It brings up another question. So, so often installers, because they're good, a high quality guy or just a high quality crew in general will get more and more offers for work and for projects, especially in the commercial world. I'm sure it's the same in the residential world. And then they get this feeling like they got to go get more people. What you're kind of alluding to is you better self-evaluate and find out where your weak points are so that you can hire to accommodate for those weak points. So if you're not the best scheduler and the best person at following up, maybe hiring someone like that, and you stay out on your knees installing if you're that good with your hands until you get somebody that can help you kind of run your crews and schedule and do that piece. So a little bit of self-evaluation, it sounds like, is necessary, kind of filling those, we'll call them talent holes.
Yeah. And that's what I was more or less relating to, is that, I had my need, I had my wants that I wanted to do, and that was to keep training and keep doing that stuff. So I looked at my need, because I could have done it. I could have stepped back and done it, but I had to give up what I like doing, right? So I looked at my need, and then I looked at and evaluated who I could put in that need that could fulfill it, right? So the same thing, like you said, you get installers and they want to get big and get more crews and more crews. I did that years ago when I subcontract. I brought on more guys, and I was running multiple crews, and I ended up working more hours because I didn't, I was young. I was hungry of getting to work. All I cared about is I was doing every job in the area. Everybody was calling me, but I wasn't really getting anything more at the end of the day because I was busy going back, because guys got called in sick, and I had to go fill it in. So I had to work 18 hours that day because I had to do my job and the other job. So it's not always,
days.
those days. So, so it's not always, and so it's not always getting bigger. If you decide to get bigger, which is great, because there's a lot of successful bigger outfits. But if you go back and find, you're going to find they had a person there that had the talent to tell good talent. So if I understand, so they hired smartly, and they grew smartly. So my I guess advice to somebody who's thinking of that or we're doing that would be, don't jump to it. Hire and look smartly.
Yeah. So be strategic in your hires and your intention, and understand the pitfalls. And I think was that Gino Wickman? Gino Wickman has a couple of books that refer to EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, right? Right people, the right seats. Like I didn't know until we read that book. I didn't know until it was presented to us. But it just, something so simple makes so much sense.
Right, and that's what he says. He says, hire slow and fire fast.
I am actually in a talk out group with your sister, little baby sister.
Oh, you better get in there.
And we're supposed to get up, and Dave said I can't get up front and present it because I do all the time. So I said, I'm out of here. Says, you better be coming back. So I better get back. I'm going back to
Roland,
babysit. Yeah.
thanks for joining us and appreciate your input, sir.
Hey, no problem. You guys have a good show. I got to get back into our breakout.
Duty calls.
Yeah.
That sounds
we-
good.
we-
Duty
we did-
calls.
We did kind of ditch them a little bit, and they broke up into groups, and then
Yeah, Daniel was supposed to be in that
it's all right.
So, well, it's interesting having Roland come in and chat through that. I wish I had one more question for him, which was specific pitfalls that he's seen. Because when I was a sub and I had my crews, I did the same as everybody, which or I should say I did it the wrong way. I won't say I did it the same as everybody. I did it the wrong way. I just started filling bodies with installers and then had the same exact thing that Roland was alluding to there, which is a guy wouldn't show up, no call, no show, and I'd have to still get that client's days worth of work done, even though I had my own crew going. And it's like you just want to add to try to fulfill the need because there's so much. If you're a good installer, there's a ton of work out there, and trying to fulfill that need. And I kind of had the same ego that Roland was just talking about. I just cared that I was doing all this work and wanted to drive by buildings and say I did that one, I did that one, I did that one. But at the end of the day, if it's not done right, you know, if you don't realize in yourself that you're not the best manager of other people, then maybe you should hire that role first and then start to build your crews out. That was a pitfall for me. Like Roland said, I was young as well, and
I think for us,
just
we did the same. We tried to get too much work. Like, you look at it like, oh, if I get more work, I'll be more profitable. The business will be more successful. And, you know, as I was just talking with, or texting with my buddy Ray, who actually got me in the flooring industry, with him the other day is, you know, he said, I've hit this dollar amount and this much money is net profit so far this year. And I said, you know, more people doesn't mean more profit. And he said, it took me so many years to understand that. You know, and that's what we did. We got too many people, too many crews going. We were putting out fires, babysitting a lot. Margins went down. The overall dollar amount went up, right? Don't get me wrong. Like, it went up, but what was left over after it went up wasn't worth all the headache and the hassle. Like, and that was young business mind, naive, not knowing what to do. And not understanding that concept of right people, right seat. And that thing applies to way more than just running a business, right? That applies to your crew, you know, a crew of 2, crew of 3. You don't want the wrong person talking to the clients. You don't want the wrong person installing material they're not comfortable with because the other person, I have seniority, I got to go talk to the client. You know, it's like, you got to be
Yeah, a lot of
intentional.
a lot of the larger crews that do well have a point person, a not necessarily even just a salesperson, but like an assistant that schedules the crews and makes sure that, you know, they have everything. I wish I would have thought that way back then. I just hired more people. Well, I'm doing the payroll. I'm figuring out who's going well, where I'm managing. I'm making sure they got gas in their truck. I'm, you know, all this stuff, and then I'm still trying to install. It was a mess.
That's where you get the title CEO, Chief Everything Officer.
Yeah. Well, I was that times 2, it felt like, you know, you're doing absolutely everything. And like you said, it did not turn into a greater bottom line for me. It turned into certainly more money, but more headache. And like you said, if you evaluate those, is the juice worth the squeeze? And so, you know, yeah. And so I think getting somebody there that can help you manage the timing of everything, and that's a key component I see in some of the bigger crews. If they have more than just the lead with 2 guys or something. If it's bigger than that, you start getting and splitting up and going to different job sites. That's when you ought to start thinking about somebody to schedule your time and eventually trying to replace yourself from an installation standpoint. You ought to have that first kind of scheduler manager type person in place. I know one crew in particular that does it really well, but they did not hire that manager until the pain was high enough that he was like, I have to find somebody. And it improved his business quite a bit, just having somebody running around at the job sites, making sure everybody had what they needed, checking on everybody. And he was able to just, he's able to just install. And now he doesn't even have to do that. He's just the face of the deal and managing the crews.
And you know what, and some of what I've experienced, what we've experienced is nothing is guaranteed, right? Like you're making changes and you're trying to do all this, but nothing is guaranteed. All you can do is just keep pushing forward and trying to make your decisions work and trying to make the business successful. And sometimes you just gotta take that leap of faith and hope for the best. And a lot of the reservation that we've had through some of the growth is we're just afraid to give someone that power over what we've been controlling, right? And sometimes that is very hard because some decisions that people make within your company could affect more than just your company or you. It could affect everyone else that is blanketed under that. And you got to make sure that you have the right people. You might not always feel like you're financially ready for some of that change, but if that person helps generate the revenue to offset their wages plus some, having that outlook is huge too. But having people to talk to like Paul, who's been through it and who has said, you're going to yield some results. You just have to trust the process.
Yeah, and that brings up the second point, which is I found a lot of times the guys that are out hiring people or looking for crew members do not take into account the things that I've learned in business, which is hiring based on culture. Now, you may not feel like you have a culture as a installation company, but you honestly do. You just don't know what it is. So evaluate that. And what I mean by that, if you're the early morning hardworking guy that, you and your guys and girls get up early and you guys get going and you're going to hire somebody who's notoriously shows up at job sites at 10 o'clock and expect it because now they work for you, that's going to change. And I've seen that as the other major pitfall. Like if you are the go-getter early morning kind of person and you're a hard worker and this other installer is known for, like I said, showing up, at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, or always has a vehicle issue or leans on excuses a lot, and you're the no excuse kind of person, you better make sure you guys mesh well. I don't think enough people think of that. That's why you see, at least I have seen guys that work for different crews, and they'll work for this crew for a while, and then next thing you know, they're over here working for some other sub, and then next thing you know, they're working on their own, and then they go back to work for another sub over here, and they're just always moved around. Well, you got to make sure that whoever you're hiring makes a fit with how, if you don't feel like you have a culture, think about it like personality, that their personality matches with yours, that their work ethic, their temperament, all those things, everything meshes well before you hire them. Don't just hire somebody because they know how to install a flooring product that you want to install. Make sure they're a good fit for your personality and the way you want your business to run. Because I can tell you one thing that I can vouch for, and I know these guys can, is the buck stops with you. It's not like whoever you're working for, the GC is gonna, or if you're working for a flooring store that they're gonna go worry about, oh, I'm sorry I sent this guy over there. No, they hired you to do the job. The buck
Yeah.
stops with the main guy. So
It doesn't matter who, like you said, they hire you, and the person you send is a representative of you and an extension of your company. Whether they're an employee or a subcontractor, they're still an extension of your
Well,
company.
you think about it like when you see some of these posts on like I'm in some community groups, right, for our city. And some people will be like, I went to this chain restaurant and this person was horrible. I'll never go there again. And it's not the owner's fault, or it's not the owner that did it to them or anything. It's that one employee that made them decide, I'm never going to go to this specific location again. It's the same thing when you're dealing with, us or someone that works for us. It's everyone has to have the same attitude going into the day in order for you guys to mesh well.
yeah.
I think everybody's entitled to bad days too, right? It just sucks that you can do a million things right. It's just everybody always remembers you for the one thing you did wrong. Depending on how much they like to hover over that one thing.
Yeah, at the end of the day, though, in construction, the good quality people, even through those mistakes, always kind of land on their feet. Because while you might take it in the old shorts on a particular project, we've experienced that the company or the GC we're working for or whatever will come back around and realize that it was, a pretty isolated issue. The key is, though, when it's not an isolated issue, when it's something that continuously happens, then you got to evaluate who you're hiring and make sure that you're, getting those people that are going to fulfill the job the same way that you have fulfilled them. It's a really kind of a sticky scenario with installation teams. It's, I've plenty of times hired a guy and he sends out, another crew, and that crew does a fantastic job. And then another time he'll send out a different crew that doesn't do such a fantastic job. Well, it's not like I threw him to the curb over it, but the key is if that continued to happen with every crew he gave me, well, then I would have to evaluate whether or not we could do business with him anymore.
Yeah.
And that's where he has to evaluate if he's going to do business with the person that keeps on messing up for him as well, right? Because a lot of our what we call our differentiator in our area is that we do hire employees and we do pay them on a W-2. So the construction companies kind of know what they're getting. They're like, oh, we're hiring them.
Yeah.
I know this is who's going to be there on site. And not a lot of the times, but a lot of the construction companies have, come up to me and was like, that's the reason why you won this bid is because we know exactly what we're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah, and you guys have done a really good job of like managing your growth to not go, crazy and then all of a sudden have to hire a bunch of sub crews that you don't know. You have some select guys that you use, but for the most part, you handle your work with your W-2 employees and try to hire right. And that's a caution. That's a success tale for installers out there looking to grow. And you guys grew your installation business into a full service shop. I did the same thing. So we have that in common. And one of the common grounds we've had over this time of getting to know each other over the years is the fact that we have that in common. We both made mistakes, but at this juncture, we've learned a lot of things, and we're just trying to tell you guys out there that if you want to do the same kind of progression, there are some easier ways than the way I did it. I'll tell you that. And one of them is hiring right and not hiring out of desperation, hiring the right people that fit you. And when you feel like you have a culture, I'd say fit your culture, one of my mentors, Andy Frisella with First Form out of St. Louis, he'll go out when he hires. Now, it's a big company, but I thought this was interesting. When he has somebody that he's interested in through an interview, he'll actually go out and look in their car and see if it's tidy and if it's a mess. And he does that because, not because it would matter at another place, but that's one of his pet peeves is someone, I mean, he'd hate me. My desk is a messy mess. To me, it wouldn't matter 2 cents whether or not your car is a mess. But to him, because that's his culture and how he is, he goes out and takes a peek in their vehicle before he signs on the dotted line to hire somebody, sees if they kind of match him. So that's probably a bit of an extreme case, but that's still the same thought process.
Not really. I mean, I get it, right? You want to see how someone handles their or keeps their personal stuff. If they keep their personal stuff nice, chances are they're going to keep something that doesn't belong to them nice as well. I get it, and I used to tell the guys all the time when I was in the field, like, hey, we got to keep the van clean. Like, I don't like this mess. Pick up your mess. And somebody asked me why, and I was like, what happens if we go to a job site one time and the person we're doing the work for, or a store that hires us says, you know what, it's easier if I just hop in your vehicle and I'll show you where to go. So let me just hop in, let's ride together. Like, are you going to be like, hold on a minute? Or are you going to say, all right, come right on in, right? Like, so, you know, what are you going to do? It's better to be prepared for something like that. And that's just not the vehicle thing, right? But and I guess overall in life, it's better to be prepared for someone to judge you off of something that you fully have control over, and that's appearance, cleanliness.
Well, there's a good parallel. I mean, I do look at guys' tools and judge the crap out of them. Like, if I see a guy that's got patch built up on his trowel and you could tell that he's never washed
we just say
it,
carpet guy. That's a carpet guy.
pulling out a scraper to scrape the patch off, or he's got to bang it on I mean, that kind of stuff. I'm like, clean your equipment. This is what makes you money. Keep your stuff clean. And we preach that to our employee installers. Obviously, we don't have the need or the ability to control that with subs, obviously, but it is a telltale sign of how well, like, a guy that keeps his equipment, I'll say the whole crew that keeps their equipment clean and nice, they are more likely to keep your job site clean and nice than somebody who has a messy mess of everything.
Well, they care. And that goes back to what you said about the culture thing. I know that my tools are my investments, right? The tools are most of the tools you buy are temporary, but I am still going to treat them really well because they're only going to work as good as you keep them. And if you're maintaining them like crap, they're going to work like crap. They're not going to last as long as they should. But Daniel will tell you, we'll buy something and he was like, hey, we got to replace this. What? We got to replace it? We just bought that. He's like, dude, we just bought that.
2017.
Yeah. And it's like, man, I know we could have got more out of it. And that goes back to say the tool thing. Like, I have tools at home that I have had probably 20 years now. Nobody's allowed to touch those tools, right? Those are mine. Nobody touches them. I don't ever borrow them out. They're mine. They're mine. They've been well kept. Nobody touched them. Majority of them are not just for flooring, but because I know I've taken care of them and I don't want to put that responsibility in someone else's hands. So I got a good thing going with them. 20 years, man.
Yeah, you got a relationship with your tools at that point.
100%.
Well, it also boils down to efficiency. If you have to pull out it's so much easier to clean a patching trowel or something like that when you're done with it and the stuff's wet. There's no doubt about that. That's not up for debate. And it's also not up for debate that your tool is going to be in better shape in a year than if you constantly have to beat it to death to get the patch off, or your buckets are always full of crap and you got to beat the crap out of them to mix new patch up. Those things are not, like, efficiency wise, you get on a job, it is easier to clean them out when they're wet. It's just like pushing this can down the road and taking care of your equipment. We've had a whole podcast on those types of items, but they come right back in here because that's the point, though. If you're going to hire somebody, that maybe the Andy Frisella equivalent to going and looking at their car is go look at their tools. Go see how they take care of their stuff before you hire them. Make sure that you're in line, because how they take care of their own is exactly how they're going to take care of yours. I can tell you that.
Yeah. I typically try to return things in better condition than what I got them. And that's just me, right? Like, I don't want to be the reason that something breaks when I give it back.
Yeah. So how's, guys, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that the key takeaways here are, kind of like Roland said, know where your weaknesses are and hire for those. The right people in the bus is, there's a book, Good to Great, as well as Traction from Gino, that both talk about putting the right people on having the right people on the right seat. You can have the right person, but in the wrong seat. So even in your, install company, you can have the wrong people in the wrong seat. So knowing what you need to hire for it's just not always hiring another installer. Sometimes it can be making you more efficient as an installer by having somebody take the phone calls or processing the work orders and doing your billing and making sure that you have your materials on site and your guys are and your crews are all lined up and stuff. So, evaluate that and, prevent the pitfall of going into either hiring or going into business with somebody that doesn't match your personality or match your culture. And growing, if you can hire the guys as W-2, that's ideal anyway. This subbing to a sub thing is to me a problem in our industry that we need to figure out how to not have happen. You can team up with the sub, but another sub if you need help on a job or something, but like just subbing your work out to other subs, almost being like a broker, that's just taking margin out of the actual installer's pocket, and to me doesn't make sense. But those are some of the pitfalls.
Dave Garden said hi.
Like he's gonna.
What's up, Dave?
Here,
I'll get out.
here. We'll let them introduce themselves real quick.
All right, Tony, sit
Tony,
down.
here.
Say hi to these guys.
Don't you come around this way, Tony, so you don't trip.
You guys all know me.
Hey,
Tony,
so for everybody in the audience, we got Dave Garden with CFI coming in. You talk about a guy that's built some crews up over the years.
That's Tony Buckard.
Hey, Tony, what's up, man?
That Tony was the last president of CFI in our old format.
Yep.
He was Tony's an inspiration to all of us. He actually runs a CCS in Fort Wayne right now. Best part about that is he is our tech line.
His cell phone.
Yeah, we
His
run
cell
up to
phone's
Tony.
your tech line.
So anyway,
So how's the show starting off for you guys?
I think the team meeting, all we did today was a team meeting. I think it went okay. It went what's that? Oh yeah, other than Jose and Dan getting up and leaving, it's just, and the thing about it is right when they were leaving is when we were going to highlight their activities. And so the only activity we highlighted was their butts as they're walking out the door.
Well, just in time.
No, that's all it is. It's just a team meeting today. We went over, I think it was a productive team meeting.
Yeah.
We went over some things and learned some things, and That's about it. The meat and potatoes, it happens when you get here. But,
Well, I'll be there tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And for everybody watching, the CFI that we always talk about on the huddle here, these are the guys that make it happen behind the scenes, always working to put together great training events and sessions, and trying to figure out the right, whether it's the right curriculum for a new training, or where particular needs are across the nation. These guys make it happen. So when we talk about CFI, these are the guys behind the scenes making it all work. And so Dave is, just to maybe tell you a little bit, and I'll let Dave expand on this, but Dave, you ran a large installation team, and one of today's topics, actually, the topic of the day, was managing installation teams as you're growing. Maybe you're a 1 or 2 person crew, and then you start hiring other crews, and you start to get that pain of them not fulfilling the need, or maybe they don't have the same work ethic as you. And so we were talking about some of them pitfalls, and you were a guy that grew a large install team. So maybe you can expand on that a little bit.
When I used to have hair.
Enough said.
Enough said. But no, the thing is, you can't hire yourself. All right, and it's the first thing you have to understand. You got to be able to put faith in other people to do their jobs, provide them with the training that is necessary. And the real big thing is, you don't want to give somebody a project that will hurt them. So you have to understand and know who you have working for you. And as you scale that, then you have to hire people that understand that in their own community, as you scale that to other communities. And that's difficult, because you go from managing a handful of crews to managing the people that are managing the crews. That was the hardest scale for me. That was the hardest jump for me, because my comfort zone is with the installer, right? Well, and what I found out that I was really great at building the company, and maybe not so great at managing the company. Because managing the company is about the people you hire to manage. All right, and you need to, and when you get to that point where you got to rely on those people, and you got to have trust that they're going to do their jobs. And then if you can't trust them, you got to be willing to make that change in a hurry, because it cannot cost you your crew. All right. And, one thing that I'll tell people is that what I like to do when I go to a warehouse, when I was running 14 warehouses, is show up to the warehouse. I go to that back alley. And help the guys unload their trucks, and get to know the helpers. Why? Well, think about it. Those helpers are going to give you more information about what's going on in that job than you're ever going to hear when you step inside that job, right? But the other thing is you're building relationships, and those relationships are important. So, and the funny thing is now after we scaled that company and got it really big, I would go in to try to do a training, and I'd have to convince people I installed carpet, or I installed wood. Don't you know me? Well, no, they don't know you. They don't know you. And so you're never just an installer. Remember that. You're never just an installer, but you can't hire yourself, because yourself won't work for you.
What do you say to the guy? What do you say to the guy that, or the crew that, the lead person on a crew that, has a lot of demand on him, that, because they do good work, they got more and more like pressure to do more. I own a flooring company, and our good guys, we lean on. I mean, it's just natural that, like, I know he can do it. I know he's on this job, but maybe as soon as he's done there, we can get him over here. And you're kind of, and so then they start going and hiring some crew members, and that's where it starts to fall apart if they don't do quality hiring. What's the pitfalls there?
Constant training, because the pitfalls are is if you hire people, and there's only so many ladders down that chain before somebody can't afford to make a living. All right. And so you got to be careful of that and how you set people up, because if you got, just because you got your A crew, whatever you're gonna call him, your apex guy. He's great for you, but the guy he hires is not he's not going to be the same as that guy, even though he's getting trained by him, but he's also getting paid less. And so that you have to be careful, because there's no reason to run a business if you're not going to make any money. There's no reason. So make sure that, from my standpoint, I got to make sure that apex guy can afford to pay his guy correctly. And then I got to make sure that his guy, he's actually filtering it down to his guy. And when we're crossing, there's a lot of gray area here, because as soon as I tell somebody how to run their business, what's that make them? An employee. It doesn't make them there. So there's a lot of gray area there and I found, I'm going to put a plug in here. The more certifications and trainings I did inside my warehouse, the more I got to know everybody that was working for everybody. And so you got to, you would hear things that you didn't know. And then the point is to make sure you're doing things with them. Now, Dwayne, who lives in your community, has something completely special. I mean, he has his guys out for barbecues, right? Dwayne, you can't know that guy without loving him, right? So if you work for him, you know him. He has. I could just see Dwayne having 14 warehouses and going into a different community, and just to make sure that he had a barbecue out back for everybody. But Mo, think about this. It's genius, though, because he's getting to know everybody in a social setting where they want to know him. And that's so if you want to scale something and you want guys to feel comfortable where they're at, you need to make sure they're comfortable with you as a leader. And without that, it's just a job and not a career. It's just a placeholder, not the place they want to be. And that makes it makes a big difference.
Yeah, we touched on that earlier a little bit, that, you know, one of the keys to hiring is making sure if you're small and you don't, your installation company is small and you don't feel like you have a culture, you do discover what that culture is. And it may just boil down to your personality, but in either regard, you got to make sure you're hiring right and that the people that you bring on match you or match your company's culture. Pruitt's a good example, to be honest with you. He's very, he's outgoing and very robust is a good way I could put it. If you're a very quiet person and that bothers you, or if he can't get a rise out of you here and there, or you don't get his silly jokes or something, you know, there you can hire wrong. And I know he'd tell you, you know, he's made some hires where the personality fit just was not there. And so that's one of the things, that just because you can install doesn't mean it's a good hire.
Well, you have to remember the most important thing about scaling, Paul, is if you come up short on payroll on a Friday, good luck getting work out on Monday.
Yeah.
All right. You pay your installers before you pay yourself. That's it. That's the best advice I can give anybody, because if your installers come into your shop and they see a check that is short because you can't afford them, and then they see you pulling a boat down the road, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Problem when you can't pay your guys. So make sure that you pay them first. All right. That's it's about the best advice.
Good advice. Good advice to every crew out there is make sure your guys are paid, and, you know, pay them what they're worth too. As another note, you know, if they're knocking it out of the park for you, make sure you're knocking it out of the park for them.
Yeah. Hey, we got to go finish cleaning up.
Okay. Well, hey, we're gonna close this sucker down. So thank you guys for joining, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Tony, thank you for talking so much.
Oh yeah,
Dave went down.
Man down, man, sniper. He's over there. He's up there. I seen him.
Dave wears a size 28 shoe, so his toe got cut.
We didn't get that on video though.
I did.
He's laughing, getting on the elevator right now.
No, that what he just said, that's 100% right. As a leader, you have to eat last. And I always plug Simon Sinek, and that's what he always says. He has a book called Leaders Eat Last, and that's true, right? Because as a leader, he goes into like the military and how, that's where he got it from, is in the military, you see everyone that is in a lead position, they let everyone else eat and then they'll eat. And I didn't realize until, I really started listening to it, but that's how I've always been, even as if I'm cooking as the cook, I'm always like, you're cooking. And then, all right, it's time to eat. And everyone's always like, hey, why aren't you eating? I just, you guys eat, and then I'll grab something.
What's funny is he says that, and I never thought about it like that. I just always ate last because I thought it was the right thing to do. I just always.
Well, it is. It's like that servant. It's almost like that servant's heart. And as a leader of other people, you want to serve them. And it's interesting that it boils down to food, but it's true.
I think what you have to start thinking about in business, it relates to your life, right? A lot of things that you do in business is your life. Like you said, it's a personality thing.
Yeah.
And if your personality is that leadership personality, it translates over into work. So the more that you can realize that, hey, this is what I'm doing in my personal life is going to trickle into my work life, and vice versa, you start putting those together, and you don't realize that you've had a leadership trait for a really long time. It just took you a long time in order to put it in play. And then you start realizing, man, I never like listening to these books. It's like I never realized that that's how I was.
So everybody in my household at home listening, we just figured out why I'm like that. That's never even dawned on me. I always just took it as just the right thing to do.
So when you're hiring and stuff, and just look at Dwayne's cookouts, right? You can learn a lot from someone just by watching them at the cookout. Who's going to be hanging over here waiting for all these people to eat, and then they'll go get their plate. They're fine with taking the few things that are left over, as long as everyone else is happy, and they're totally satisfied with that. And then
they're handing out
that are like, boom, food's ready, I'm gonna eat.
Yeah, they're handing out beers to the guys as they're it's I think that one part of this that has came up here at the end is leadership. I think you got to evaluate if you're a leader or not, if you're going to be leading other people. So I think a cool thing to talk about just for the last couple of minutes here is, what books have you read that kind of point towards, you mentioned Simon Sinek. He's always been his book about I forget the title, but it's basically what's your why?
Your why.
And then the 7 Habits of an Effective Leader is a book that I've read, and
there's a lot of books that tie into it, right? It doesn't have to just be specifically about leadership, but it can be about building yourself into that person. Like there's that 5 a.m. club, Make Your Bed,
My Miracle Morning.
There's
so invest in yourself is the point, right? Invest in yourself, and
I think if you find an author that you like and you listen to or you read, what you're going to find is that they have authors that they like and they plug in their books. So it's like, oh, let me write that down so I can listen to that. And you'll see that a lot, right? It's, this person said this in this book, and I really relate to it in what I'm trying to teach you here. So you can actually find one author and expand on it just by listening to that one person.
Yeah, and get around other people that are growing and have that energy of like building their business or building themselves. Hang out with those kinds of people. I've always found that environment really impacts the way people grow and how they act. And so, getting around good people, which means my shameless plug back to getting to conventions and doing what these guys are doing right now. I'll be flying out at 5:30 in the morning to join them. And
when you
know,
really boil it down, right? That's why I think I like Simon Sinek a lot, is because it's not even finding stuff about helping yourself. It's he relates it a lot to there, there's a lot of books on, help yourself books, or right? There's nothing about help other people, and that's what he kind of tries to tie it into. It's, I want to help other people, and I think that really resonates with me, because I mean, just look at what we're doing right now. We're not on here to, of course it's, giving me information that's going to help myself,
Yeah.
it's going to help our business, but at the same time, I don't want people to have the same struggles as me or as you did. It's like, we want to help you guys out as well. And I think that's why I bring up Simon Sinek a lot, is because, man, it's, if we're always just focused on how can I help myself, we kind of lose sight of what we're really here for, and it's how can I help someone else.
You'll find that helping someone else is actually in turn helping yourself anyway, right? Because it's
well, it's like they say,
you're not
if you
fulfilling.
help enough other people, right? It always
come
comes
full
back
circle.
around.
I wish I think baby sister's on a call over there actually, but that's what she's been dealing with a lot lately, is she's been talking to me about karma, and how karma, one thing over here is going to come full circle at some point. So it's just, you have to do it with the mindset of, I don't want anything from what I'm giving you, but eventually that karma is going to catch up.
Yeah. And for those out there listening, like if you don't relate to the way Simon Sinek's delivery is, find somebody that you like that speaks to you, right? That's what there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of good motivational books,
Content.
There you go, content. They have, but it's got to resonate with you. And until you find that person or that content, you're just going to be floating with the wind.
Yeah, well, it boils down to trying to improve yourself. So get around the right people. Obviously you guys have invested in yourself, and invest in other people as well. And at the apex for me, or what really makes me feel better about maybe a bad day, is if I am able to help somebody get through a tough time. It doesn't always mean money. Sometimes it is. Sometimes I help with that. But a lot of times it's talking to a friend about a difficult situation they may be going through, or talking to an installer that works for us about a difficult situation they're going through. So be there for people, but also, like you said, don't have the intent of getting something back. That's where you ruin the whole mojo. And I know we got onto a little bit of personal development here, but at the end of the day, what is a leader? It's somebody who invests in their people, and thus invest in themselves. So like, you got to be willing to do that and get yourself in the right environment. And again, like getting to convention and being around Dave and Tony and Daniel, Jose, and all these guys that are there. There's a big group of people at the conventions. There's some mainstays there that you'll get to know, and they can help you in your business. They can help you through a journey that you may be fighting with as an installer. Most of us, if you specifically at CFI, most of us installed that go to those shows. So, if you're trying to grow an installation business, Dave grew a massive install business.
He's very modest about it too. Like he doesn't ever.
He
say
is modest
what
about it.
He's very modest about it. Not my place to say what it was, but just know that.
Yeah.
Pretty large.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah. So listen to those guys. They're right there for your conversation when you go to the conventions and stuff. So I know I push that a lot, and so do these guys. So
in the meeting, someone said something. I think it was Josia, might have said, no, it wasn't Josia. It was someone on the other side. But they said, I'm not going to teach you everything I know, right? Because that'll take forever. I'm not just going to start explaining everything I know. But if you have a question, 100% come and ask me, and we'll dive into it. So that's what you have to do in these situations. It's, you come here and you're like, I need to know about this. This person's going to be there. Let me make time to ask them this question. It's not a matter of going and say, hey, teach me everything you know about business. It's, hey, I'm having an issue with this one thing. What can I do about it? And that's how you have to approach it. And
Being
I,
intentional.
Yes.
yeah, and that's how that really touches me, because there has been some people, and it's, you know, focused more on the resilient flooring than anything, but that's what they do, is they come up to us and it's like, hey, I'm really having an issue on welding an outside corner. What kind of tips do you have for me? And it's like, be intentional like that.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we've ran to the end of the
Yeah, we sure
show.
did, didn't
I
we?
cannot wait to see you guys tomorrow. And if you guys are out in the audience, if you like the content, if you enjoy some of these conversations we have and bringing in different people, you know, every time we go to a show, or the guys go to a show, we pull in, we basically hard recruit some people to come on screen with us.
That's
And
exactly what
these
happened.
guys followed the protocol from previous and just went and got people again. I remember we were at CFI it was last year, I believe, and
I'm
you guys just it was you guys, and then Pruitt was bringing people over. Hey, go talk to him.
Yeah, because Pruitt doesn't like to be on camera.
Yeah, he likes to recruit everybody else. But
That's
all right,
another-
well,
If you're in Florida, Orlando area, or anywhere near it, we'd love to see you.
the Rosenchiegel Creek.
Yep.
Yep, come join us. And hope to see some of you guys there. And I will see you guys tomorrow around, I think my flight lands about 8:30. So I'll see you shortly thereafter.
Sounds good. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
All right, guys. We'll
Have a good
see you
one.
later.